Welcome back to the Human Monsters podcast. Friends and fellow true crime freaks, I hope you are all having a fantastic summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and I hope the winter in the Southern Hemisphere is not as cruel as some of our subjects today. As always, I want to thank all of you who keep on coming back to listen to the tales we tell and to support us. If you have not, please take 5 minutes to rate, subscribe, like, and review our little podcast. It's 5 minutes that will help us tremendously in the rankings and affects our visibility. Now let's get on with the show. Children of incest are in danger of premature birth and being underweight and undersized. Viable babies of incestuous couples are also likely to have physical deformities. Cleft palate. A cleft palate is a common congenital disability that genetic abnormalities in both parents can cause. Children of incest are in danger of premature birth and being underweight and undersized. Viable babies of incestuous couples are also likely to have physical deformities. To most of us, the word incest is disgusting. It's against nature and everything we are taught. There is also, apart from the moral lessons learned, a more scientific reason why this is one of the unhealthiest relationships between people in the world. Such children are at greater risk of congenital disorders, as I mentioned, developmental and physical disability and death. That risk is proportional to their parents' consanguinity of relationship. As a measure of how closely the parents are related genetically, the risk of passing down a genetic disease is much higher for siblings than first cousins. To be more specific, two siblings who have kids together have a higher chance of passing on a recessive disease to their kin. Growing up, we were taught never to talk to strangers. This rule existed because of the danger strangers can wreak on children. Now we teach children to yell "stranger danger" and run away. That is good advice for any child living in today's world. However, research has shown that 10 to 20% of children who live through incest become victims of rape by a family member, as explored in the study of Lagan and Harlow in 1994. Most rape victims in the United States are traumatized before the age of 18, and 29% of those rapes occur before 11. Of child rape victims, 11% are abused by their genetic fathers, and 16% are raped by other relatives. There are no statistics on how many women commit incest with their children. Incest between a father and son is underreported, and the prevalence of incest between a parent and their child is difficult to estimate because of the secrecy. Boys molested by adult family members have solid psychological responses such as denial, anxiety, dissociation, and self-mutilation. Common coping strategies might include becoming an angry avenger, a rescuer, a daredevil, or conforming to the misbehavior of the adult as a passive victim. Worse than the behaviors of a male or female survivor of childhood incest listed above, victims of incest may plan and execute dying by suicide. The consequence to the baby is tremendous when sex between two close family members results in a pregnancy. While genetic changes that are consequential usually take a few generations of incestuous behavior to show up in a family, there can be instant consequences for a child born to family members. Incest is harmful in many ways, including genetically. When two closely related people have sex and the female becomes pregnant, there is an increased risk of recessive gene disorders. The reason involves how genes are passed from parent to child. Children receive one copy of a gene from each parent. Usually the genes for the formation of things like autoimmune systems are inherited from each parent, with the harmful genetic material being overridden by the dominant material. The result is a healthy individual who harbors a recessive genetic mistake. When related individuals get pregnant, they decrease genetic variations, and the recessive gene they have may combine to become dominant in their child, causing many types of congenital disabilities. Here's a list of some of the birth defects caused by incest. Please note that not all the variations cause severe problems for the children of incest, but many do. Lower IQ scores. Inbreeding can negatively affect the child's intellectual abilities, even in some cases causing developmental disorders. While inheriting blue eyes from each parent's recessive gene is harmless, it can also be caused by incest. Cystic fibrosis is a severe disease that affects the cells that produce mucus, sweat, and digestive juices. The disorder causes these fluids to become thick and sticky, plugging up tubes, ducts, and passageways. Children of incest are in danger of premature birth and being underweight and undersized. Viable babies of incestuous couples are also likely to have physical deformities. A cleft palate is a common congenital disability that genetic abnormalities in both parents can cause. Children with cleft palates have difficulties speaking and feeding. Heart conditions. The birth of a baby with a deformed or otherwise malfunctioning heart is one consequence of incest. Unfortunately, if they survive, these children will have shorter lives filled with endless cardiac problems. The recessive genes inherited by the children of close relatives sometimes lead to a baby not living past gestation or dying soon after birth. Not all genetic changes caused by incest are lethal, but many cause lifelong problems that could have been avoided. The intellectual disability is also always a fear when two siblings or relatives by blood have a child. It's a sad fact that when blood relatives have children, there is always a chance for problems such as lower IQ, syndromes such as William or Down syndrome, or a myriad of other genetic disabilities a child can inherit. I am the first to agree love is supreme, and the day we understand it is the day we solve all the problems in the world. All of our nature is for love, despite all our reason being against it. Still, it's not natural or right when it's a love between family members. In today's cases, we look at mostly fathers who abused their roles as head of the household to satisfy their own desires. But first, let me tell you about the fascinating case of the Blue people of Kentucky. This is a community of people who lived away from civilization, who were known for their blue skin that often appeared almost deep blue, not a hue or a slight tint, but a definite coloring of the skin. This was, according to scientists, directly linked to incest. Around 1820, a French orphan named Martin Fugit immigrated to Kentucky to claim a land grant on the banks of Troublesome Creek. According to lore, he bore a blue-tinted complexion, and, after marrying a fair-skinned woman, 4 of their 7 children had remarkable blue skin. The odds of both having the gene that transferred the blue hue from one generation to another is incredibly rare. It's a form of hemoglobin in which too much of the gene is elevated in the blood. I am not sure that he was blue. The information from the 19th century did not make this clear. The clan was just known as the Blue People from the Hills. It most lived into their 80s and 90s and showed none of the physical disabilities I thought they might, apart from the fact that some of them were blue. It was such a long time ago, and as you can imagine, these people were discriminated against, which caused them great embarrassment. It forced them to keep to themselves, which caused inbreeding. It was easy for the community of blue people to hide their existence in the eastern part of Kentucky, since tar roads did not exist, and these people seldom ventured into town. This Caucasian family had no choice but to choose partners they were related to. The blue tint would also vary, and some members would be an almost indigo blue. A nurse by the name of Pendergrass would pique the interest of Ruth professors in the medicine department of Lexicon University when she told them about a blue woman she had treated on a very cold day. The nurse was very alarmed by the very deep blue the woman's skin had taken on, but the woman was just fine. This was in the 60s, and a professor by the name of Madison Kalla had become very intrigued by the rumors about these folk. He was the head of the heart department, and at that stage, it was believed that the condition might have something to do with the cardiovascular system. Ruth told the professor that she thought the woman was going to have a heart attack right there and then. But the woman patiently told her that she was from the Combs side of the blue people. She was the sister of Ruth Follard, and she was married to Luke Combs. While she was just a deep blue, Luke, who had brought his wife to the clinic for tests, was a bright blue. Professor Cullen would be able to determine later that the blueness of the people was as a result of an enzyme deficiency. He determined that injecting them with a blue dye would solve the problem, and for obvious reasons, the blue people were hesitant to believe this. He chose methylene blue and injected Patrick and Rachel Ritchie with the substance. The couple were injected with 100 milligrams of the substance, and within minutes, the blue color was gone. He eventually gave the people capsules to maintain the pink color that had replaced the blueness. Often people would even try to catch the blue people, but they would just run away. When it comes to the human race, nothing should surprise you. This was at least a light-hearted tale in which no one died or were really hurt. But in today's episode, you are going to get to know relatives who are outright monsters. Aaron Solomon. This is a case that is still doing the rounds in the court system, but I feel that it's worth telling. If you type Aaron Solomon in your Google search engine, the first thing that pops up is a petition by his wife to reopen the death of their son, Grant. I'm going to give you the facts as best I can, but if you listen to this and do your own research and feel it's worth your time, please go to the page and give your support. It's important to me that you form your own opinion, but here is the case so far. The case is about Grant and Gracie Solomon, but let's begin by talking about their mother, Angie. Angie grew up in less than ideal circumstances. She would rise above them and find her passion in basketball and singing. She would go on to achieve tertiary education and obtain her bachelor's degree and her doctorate in pharmaceuticals. She was a hard-working and intelligent woman who was able to buy her own home, and she was on her way to make a perfect life for herself. In 2001, she reconnected with a man she went to school with by the name of Aaron Solomon. He was working at the time as a sports anchor for VSVD, which was an ABC affiliate in Tennessee. The relationship grew quickly, and within 6 weeks, Angie discovered that she was pregnant with her first son, Grant. She was prepared to raise her son by herself, but she felt pressure from her parents to marry Aaron. After only being in a relationship for 2 months, the couple tied the knot. On the 17th of October 2005, the little family welcomed a daughter by the name of Gracie. Grant, who was a very positive and happy child, was very close to his sister and his mother, and he saw himself as a protector of the 2 women in his life. At the age of 4 years old, he began to play baseball, and he showed unusual talent in the sport. He was such a good pitcher that he caught the attention of Division I schools in his high school years. According to Angie, her relationship with her husband quickly turned sour after the birth of Grant. Angie claims that Aaron had frequent angry outbursts and exercised control over everything in the house. Aaron had not just cheated on her more than once. He was grooming underage girls and had often hired sex workers to fulfill his needs. In 2011, Aaron voluntarily resigned from his job after explicit content was found on his laptop. In 2014, he started at Merrill Lynch as a financial advisor. But the abuse apparently continued. Angie would try to seek therapy, but Aaron made it almost impossible by insisting on listening in and inserting himself into her sessions. He would later join her in these sessions, during which Angie was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Aaron, on the other hand, had been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, as well as having an addiction to sex. Aaron's abuse against his wife seemed to have escalated after the birth of Gracie. In 2013, Gracie told her mother that her father insisted on giving her baths and that he wanted to be the only one to do so. Angie noted that Gracie would become very upset when it became time for her to take a bath. Gracie confided in her mother that her father was hurting her in a physical and sexual manner during bath time, and that he was inserting soap into her private parts. Angie did confront Aaron, who confessed that he had done it. He warned Angie that if she told anyone, he would ensure that she never saw her children again. Angie became as proactive as she possibly could by seeing another therapist by the name of Dr. Reed. She also began to take notes on her phone and started to work on an exit plan. Both sets of grandparents were well aware of what was happening at home, but for one reason or another did not give Angie any support or intervened in any way. In May 2013, Angie had taken to sleeping with her 2 children in her locked bedroom because Aaron's outbursts were so severe. Aaron appears to have convinced her to unlock the room, and he took her into the bathroom to talk. There he proceeded to hit her on the side of the head with the cord of a hairdryer. Grant walked in, witnessing his father strangling his mother, and he intervened. Angie escaped from the house, but a police report on the matter was never filed. Aaron, in a strange flipping of the script, called the police himself. Angie said that she had called Aaron's parents, and it was after they spoke to him that he made the call, but not to report the abuse he had committed. He called to tell them that his wife had tried to take her own life. Angie was forced to go to Parthenon Memorial Hospital for treatment because of the claims that she was mentally ill and had tried to take her own life. Angie told the doctor the truth about what happened, and she was allowed to stay overnight to get away from the situation for a bit. When she returned to the home on the 11th of May, the house was completely empty. The children were gone, and despite numerous calls to Erin and her parents and in-laws, no one answered her calls. She was hoping to see her kids the following day, which was Mother's Day. But instead the police arrived because Erin once again called them and told them she was trying to take her life. The amount of gaslighting is astounding. The police fortunately assessed the situation and decided that Angie was in a toxic relationship and was no danger to herself or anyone else. So far, the police and the hospital agreed that she had no suicidal tendencies and was in a toxic relationship and needed to get away from her husband. Angie, while waiting for news about her children's whereabouts, approached the police, who were not willing to assist her. Erin had finally taken the step to file for divorce. He managed to gain full custody of the children, but Angie was relentless in her fight to have her children back. Neither of the children wanted to stay with him because he was incredibly strict and controlling. He controlled their diets and was physically harmful to both children. Grant lost 25 pounds while in the care of his father. Grant wanted to get away from his father so badly that he jumped from a moving car, but Erin managed to grab him by the wrist and pulled him back. It seems that this incident might have also caused Grant's wrist to be permanently damaged. On the 21st of June 2013, the divorce hearing took place, and Angie's family members decided to side and testify on Erin's behalf, despite testimony from her doctors. The ultimate ruling was that the children should be with Erin. Angie continued to document any actions or abuse that seemed harmful from Erin, and by 2014, Angie was allowed 2 hours of visitation per week with her children. Angie would finally get to see her children, but the state they were in concerned her. Grant had lost a lot of weight, and Gracie had big dark bags under her eyes. Despite her concern for her exhausted children, the court had ruled that she was not allowed any alone time with the children until she went for a full psychiatric evaluation. She did, and was declared completely competent with no suicidal thoughts or desires. Still, the only change would be that she now could see her children for 6 hours a week. In November 2014, Gracie told her mother that the sexual abuse continued with Erin. She opened up more in 2015, telling her mother that she suspected that she was being drugged. When she woke up from one of these episodes, she discovered she was in her father's bed and her thighs and private areas were burning. Gracie also FaceTimed her mother and showed her a series of bruises on her legs. According to Erin, these were just rashes from her swimsuit. Gracie also said that if they said something to upset Erin in the car, he would purposefully drive faster. During this time, Erin had received an inheritance of $1 million from an aunt, and he had been receiving payments on a monthly basis. Despite the windfall, Erin made a complaint that Angie was not paying her side of the child support in April 2015, which led to her arrest. Angie continued to reach out for an endorsement from organizations in her community and the Grace Academy, where Gracie was a student, to get support, but her pleas for help gained little traction. In 2018, Gracie and Grant tried to run away from home, but were promptly returned to their father. During the weekend of the 17th of August, things took a turn for the worst when Grant had to attend a baseball tournament Grant remained at the tournament while Gracie and Aaron returned to their home. Along the way, Aaron booked a room with only one bed, despite Gracie asking for 2 beds. That evening, Aaron attacked her again, and during the hearing the following day, Gracie did recount the details of the attack. Despite the testimony, as well as a statement by Grant on paper that detailed the ongoing abuse, Angie not only lost the hearing, but was also banned from filing any other such hearings. The judge felt that the hearings were filed out of spite instead of the best interests of the children. Gracie had tried to confide in staff members at their school. Grant was so upset he refused to go to school until he got a meeting with the school principal. He got his meeting, but he got nowhere, ruining Gracie's reputation. Aaron had a good standing in his church, which was an affiliate of the school, and Angie believes that is why this happened. On the 21st of July 2020, things took a turn for the absolute worse when Aaron had to make a call at 8:44 a.m. from the practice grounds where Grant was supposed to start his baseball practice for the day. According to Aaron, who just happened to be the only witness to the accident, he was looking at his phone from his car when he looked up and saw that a truck was heading straight for Grant. The truck then proceeded to hit Grant and drag him before coming to a standstill in a ditch. On the call, Aaron claimed that there were 3 people helping and that Grant was awake. But these statements would all be later proven to be false. Personally, he sounds very calm for someone whose son has been trapped under a vehicle.
I'm trying.
Where's your emergency?
It's 1357 South Water Street. It's off 109. Please hurry.
You said 57?
Please hurry.
Okay, what's going on?
1357. My son's truck backed over him, and it's rolled over him and dragged him into the ditch, and it's on top of him. He's trapped under the truck, and somehow it drug him underneath it. Yes, my son is under it. I'm trying to call 911.
Okay, what's your name?
Oh my God. My name is Aaron Solomon.
And you said
oh my God.
1357 South Water Avenue, right?
Yes.
How old
yes.
is the male?
He's 18. He just turned 18 a couple weeks, about a month ago. It's my son. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is not good.
Is he awake and
Oh, please
talking
hurry.
to you?
I don't think so. He's not alert, right? No, he's out. And he's trapped. I got 3 guys here, and he's trapped under the truck.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I understand, sir. Stay on the phone with me while we get somebody out there. What's your name?
Aaron Solomon.
All right, Aaron.
Huh?
What kind of vehicle is it?
It's a Toyota Tacoma, and the vehicle he's underneath the vehicle.
Okay, I've got that.
And it's.
Okay, I've got that. What color is it?
It's a white truck. That's my son. It's somehow backed up. Yeah. Yeah, I'm on with 911 right now. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Was your son working on it?
No, he was just getting out of it. We're on an incline, and I guess he didn't have it in park or something, or it wasn't engaged, or. Oh my God. Oh my God, I can't believe this.
Is your son still not responding?
No.
And he's still under the truck. No one can get out from under it. We've got units en route to you. I'm just asking you questions where we can update them, okay? Can you check and see if he's breathing?
Somebody's telling me that he's coming to.
Okay.
Maybe.
is waking up,
Maybe.
kind of keeping still. So he is.
Well, he can't. Yeah, he can't move. I don't think he can move. I don't know.
Okay, I understand.
No, he can't move. He's trapped.
Okay, we got somebody en route. Now, when he wakes up, he might be scared. Can somebody just get down there and talk to him?
Yeah, somebody talk to him. Shit. There's blood. Is he facing up or down? He's facing up. They said he may aspirate. We need to hurry. Oh, my God.
So does he have blood coming out of his mouth?
Yeah, there's blood coming out. Yeah, somehow it drug him down, I think. I don't know whether it was an infarct or what, or if it didn't engage the brake, or it drug him underneath somehow.
Okay.
They said he's facing up.
Okay.
But he's bleeding from his mouth. So, Grant, turn your face to the side if you can, barely, but be careful.
Don't move him, okay?
We can't move him. We can't move him. Oh my God.
All right, Beeson, they're there. I'm going to let you go, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
On the call, he continues to talk to people, but when EMTs arrived, they found Aaron completely alone. He claims Grant came to, which was a lie. Grant was lying on his back between the back wheels and was bleeding from his nose, ears, and mouth. EMTs tried to save his life, but he died on the way to hospital. He also had 3 marks on his jaw, 1 on his hip, and on his right thigh. The cause of death would be determined to be cardiac arrest, and Aaron, without consulting anyone else, declined an autopsy and refused to donate his organs. Angie said later that she believes that Grant would have wanted to donate his organs and that she would have welcomed an autopsy. The case was quickly closed and Grant's death was ruled an accident. Angie, Gracie, and their supporters do not agree with these findings. There were no signs of dragging on Grant's body, and the truck, despite not having anything wrong with it, was demolished by Aaron. There are also no burn marks from the hot engine and no evidence on his back. He also seemed to have no blunt force trauma at the back of his head, as one would expect. His shoes were clean, and the area where Grant's body was supposedly dragged was undisturbed. Grant's glasses were on the sidewalk, which is unusual because he was completely dependent on them. A rock with blood was also found in the ditch next to the car. There are many other questions that still need to be answered. Angie salvaged the truck before Aaron could scrap it, and after a forensic analysis, it was determined that the accident could not happen the way Aaron said it did. On the 12th of May 2021, Gracie released an 18-minute YouTube video in which she detailed the abuse, her mother's struggle to get custody, and the unanswered questions surrounding her brother's death. So far, the police have seen no reason for the case to be reopened, but Angie continues her fight for justice. There is a petition to reopen Grant's case, and there is also a petition called Freedom for Gracie. You can find online, if you feel like I do, that this case has too many flaws to ignore. As I said before, go do your own research and make your own conclusions. But if you feel it stirs your heart, give your support to Angie and Gracie. Oklahoma man. In the eastern part of Oklahoma, there is a case that is a little frustrating because most of the players are not allowed to be called by their real names since children are involved. Nonetheless, it's a case that left the hair on my neck to stand straight up. We've compiled what we can find from court documents and allegations and the interviews the anonymous older children later did. Still, like me, you will find it hard to imagine what the reality was like for the children in these circumstances. The secrets that were well guarded were all revealed by my favorite of people, a nosy neighbor. Mrs. Doris Cole is the kind of neighbor every neighborhood and suburb needs. Doris was a small business owner and had first become aware of the family we are discussing in 2017, when she hired him as a contractor to paint the interior of some of her venues. Over a period of 4 years, she would hire the man for work, and after a while he began to bring his 2 teenage daughters with him to work. The first thing that bothered Doris was that there were clear signs of neglect. Their clothing was dirty and in terrible shape, and they smelled something awful. The van the man used also looked as if it doubled as a home, with food and clothing filling it to the brim. When Doris spoke to the teenage girls, she found their speech was incredibly impaired, and that she struggled to understand them. They could also not read or write. She wanted to know if they were homeschooled, but never got a straight answer. Doris felt her gut was telling her something was wrong here, but she was not sure how to compute all the information. One day, Doris met the man's stepdaughter in the hallway. The very first thing Doris noticed was, not only was she very young, she appeared to have given birth very recently. Doris was now even more concerned and started to ask even more questions. But the more information she tried to get from the family, the more they withdrew until they finally just one day vanished. They would not contact her for 2 years and only made contact again in 2021 when the man approached Doris again for some work. Doris needed some work done, but she also was spurred on by a sense that this family was brought onto her path for a reason. What must have caught her attention even more is when he told her that the girl he introduced as his daughter was indeed his lover. Doris had seen them hugging and kissing, and that creepy feeling remained in her gut. That convinced her, despite fears that the man and his family would flee, to call the police. To ensure that the family had a place the police can find them, she offered up one of her rental properties for the family to occupy while they did the work for her. This also gave Doris the opportunity to watch and report every move the man and his family made. In August of 2023, the police finally got hold of the man and the family. There had been so much discussion about the house, which seemed normal by all standards. Apart from an abandoned toilet in the front yard and the outdated trim on the house, the police interviewed the man, his wife, and his 4 adult kids, who all acted very confused about the complaint. They claimed that there were no minor children living there, and the police decided to leave. They went back to Doris and told her that they found nothing, which she rebuffed. She was convinced that she knew something was wrong. Despite leaving the home without anything concrete, the police continued to investigate the allegations and observations Doris had made. There were definitely minor children in the house because in the backyard, toys were strewn that were only fit for a child of toddler age. Neighbors would also later testify that the children only went out to play very late at night, just after 10 p.m. The question was why the children were hidden when the police did their original interview. On the 21st of September 2023, police surrounded the house, but to their dismay, the man and his family were not there. They went back to Doris, and this lady with an iron will knew exactly when they could find the strange extended family. This time they were able to enter the home with its occupants in it, and what they found was a dreadful and hopeless situation for any child to grow up in. To this day, not all about this investigation has been revealed, but what we do know is enough to know that what happened here was police discovered 5 children under the age of 18. They clearly had not been bathed in a very long time. They were unkempt and all had severe dental problems. There was nowhere for the children to sleep except one bedroom with one mattress that was soiled from corner to corner. The children, who were not allowed anywhere except in that house, had also never seen a doctor. In essence, it was the 5 young children, 3 adult children, and a girl whose status varied from stepdaughter to lover, and the man and his original wife all living in this house. All seemed to be under the control of the man, and 2 of the children were completely nonverbal. All the children were interviewed by a professional, and during the interview, one of the children said that the man had touched her chest, quote, because he's a doctor, end quote. She had also indicated that he had touched her again in the same inappropriate manner. Apparently, he would do this to all the children to check on them, in his words. His wife was the first to tell police that his stepdaughter was his biological daughter. She also admitted that this daughter was the mother of the 5 minor children the family kept hidden during the first visit. She also admitted that he had sexually assaulted his children and his grandchildren on a regular basis. His daughter had her first child when she was only 12 years old. All the children were born at home. The man admitted in the interview to the neglect and the abuse, and that he was the father of all the children. The children never went to school or had any kind of homeschooling. The man and his wife were arrested for 2 charges of sexual abuse of a child and 5 counts of neglect, but the man's charges were later upgraded to incest. His wife was charged with similar charges, with the exception that she enabled the abuse of her children and grandchildren. Neighbors and family spoke up afterwards and were horrified and said they always knew something was wrong. During a television interview, Doris became very emotional about the state of the children, of which 2 were completely nonverbal. The man was apparently a strict father who told his children that he did not want them to go out into the world because they might get hurt. With their identities completely hidden, the older children gave television interviews during which they spoke out about the social isolation, neglect, and abuse. They knew that their sister had children with their father, but because they were not exposed to any outside influences, they thought it was normal. They still live in Doris's home and work for her, as well as attending school. They, for the first time, have identification documents, can learn to drive, and their main goal is to get their sister's children back in their care. So far, it appears that the children are all thriving as the court case makes its slow way through the justice system. The Deadly Affair. The case of Stephen and Katie Slidell is one that is a classic case of what can happen if a narcissist gets his claws into his victim. There is very little that I can tell you about Stephen's life, except that at the age of 20 years old, he met a 15-year-old girl by the name of Elisa Garcia in 1995. The couple met in an online chat room, and what began as a casual friendship soon developed into a romantic relationship in which the couple would talk to each other daily. Elisa's parents did not like this relationship. She was too young, and I am sure if they knew he flew all the way to San Antonio to see her in secret, the red flags would be flying all over. She was deeply in love with this man, and at the age of 15, she ran away from home to be with him. After she arrived in New York to be with Stephen, she cut off all contact with anyone she knew from her hometown, including her friends and family. In 1998, Elisa was pregnant with their first child. It was after the birth of their daughter Denise that Elisa started to see a shift in Stephen's behavior. Before she had the baby, he was loving, caring, and attentive. Afterwards, he would frequently abuse the baby by pinching her all over and covering her mouth so she can't breathe when she was crying. Sometimes he said he could not stand the crying so much that he placed the baby in a cooler box with the lid on. He would not allow Elisa to get the baby for at least a few minutes, even when he knew the cooler was completely sealed and would run out of oxygen. Sometimes the baby was black and blue, and Elisa knew she had to make a decision to save her baby from the abuse. She decided it would be in the best interests of everyone involved to give Denise up for adoption, no matter how hard it was to do. At the age of 8 months, Denise was adopted by a loving family who decided to call her Katie. Anthony Fusco, the father, was an officer in the New York State Correctional Services, and Kelly was a secretary. They raised her in a trailer park but managed to buy a house. Katie was raised in a happy household, with her becoming a vegetarian and being a collector of stray cats. She was a feminist and very creative. She was very mature for her age and highly intelligent and had big dreams to pursue her art. The one thing that nagged at Katie was that she wanted to know who her biological parents were. She wondered how much she was like them. She started then to look for her parents. In the meantime, Elisa stayed with Stephen, and the couple had more children. They ended up living in North Carolina, and Stephen, although he was a violent parent, he was not as abusive with them as he was with Katie. There was an incident when one of his daughters was 3 years old and she had wet herself, and instead of helping her, Stephen screamed at her. He then placed her in the bath and let her stay there for hours until her mother could come and clean her. Because he had a temper, Stephen was unable to hold a job, which meant Elisa had to work several jobs to keep the family afloat financially. This meant the children were now constantly abused by Stephen. As time passed, the abuse became worse, and he went from punching holes in the walls to throwing furniture and having angry outbursts every day. Stephen was a massive fan of guns, which worried Elisa. There was an incident when Stephen beat a cat to death because he did not like cats. Elisa's oldest daughter was intellectually challenged, and Stephen would call her a retard and other derogatory names. Elisa was caught in that old familiar cycle of abuse, in which leaving seems like a mountain to climb. Elisa and Stephen were not even sharing the same bedroom anymore, with Stephen sleeping on a sofa. It was during this time that Katie and Elisa connected and began talking to each other over Facebook on a daily basis. There was a real bond forming, and in June 2016, after her graduation, Katie flew to North Carolina from New York to meet her biological family. The reunion was blissful in the beginning. Katie adored her little siblings, and the relationship between her biological parents was healing. She decided to take a gap year from college to get to know all of them. Katie was not aware that there was abuse taking place in the home, and neither were her adopted family, which is why they supported her decision. Katie knew Stephen and Elisa were not sleeping together. Elisa was working a lot, and Katie and Stephen were at home alone for long periods at the time, getting closer and closer. Shortly after she arrived, Stephen changed his image. He started to take care of himself and trying to look younger. He was also now sleeping on the floor of Katie's bedroom next to her bed. Elisa gently reminded Katie that this was the man who caused her so much suffering when she was a baby, but Katie believed Stephen had changed. Elisa became more and more uncomfortable with the closeness between Katie and Stephen, and one day she decided to confront Stephen. This evolved into a huge argument between Katie, Stephen, and Elisa, which resulted in Stephen and Katie storming out of the home. In November 2016, Elisa had enough. She took her stuff and her girls and left, leaving the two family members alone in the house. She began divorce proceedings, but Stephen could see his two little girls. One day, as Elisa was cleaning out her daughter's room, she found her daughter's diary. She began to read it. It said that Stephen was forcing the children to call Katie their stepmother, and that Katie was pregnant. The diary spoke of a little girl who was completely confused by this unnatural dynamic in her family. Elisa called Stephen, and his response was that he thought she already knew. Apparently, Elisa was the last to find out. Everyone else knew. No one thought it was a good idea, but they had no choice but to accept it. Elisa immediately called the police, and on the 31st of May 2017, an investigation was opened. Everyone was interviewed, and the little girls confirmed that Katie was pregnant with Stephen's baby, and that the couple were living as husband and wife. On the 20th of July 2017, Katie posted to Instagram that she had just gotten married in Maryland. The photo shows a very pregnant Katie, and of course, they lied about their relationship. Their family attended, and I do believe that it was because they cared about Katie. It's frightening how much the two actually look alike. On the 1st of September, Katie gave birth to a son called Bennett, and in January 2018, an arrest warrant was issued for the couple. Both were charged with incest, adultery, and contributing to delinquency. Their son was placed in Stephen's mother's care. Stephen hired a lawyer, and he tried to justify his actions. The case made headlines, and the couple received a surprising amount of support, even creating a GoFundMe. A court order, however, prohibited the couple from seeing each other, and Katie had to move back to New York to her adopted parents. Stephen was banned from North Carolina for a while, but they lifted the motion. He was able to see his son on a regular basis, unlike Katie. On the 11th of April 2018, Stephen called his mother and told her that he wanted to pick up his son to see Katie. Katie had, however, earlier that morning called him and told him that she had seen the light and that she wanted a divorce. It appears that once away from Stephen, Katie realized that he was controlling her. Stephen took it very badly, and his fit of rage continued until he picked up his son. He took his son to his home, where he proceeded to shoot his son, shoved his little body in a closet, and got into his car to drive to Katie's home. He was watching the home when Katie left with her father. Stephen followed them. He caught up with them and shot both dead with an AR-13. He then took the coward's way out, confessed to his mother, and then he shot himself. At the end of the day, the only advice I have to give is open your gene pool to the public. There are approximately 8 billion people on this planet. I am sure you can find love outside the family circle. This episode was written by Penny Morris. Thank you for listening to Human Monsters. Bye for now.